Tokyo Ghoul ended yesterday, and I didn't have enough time to review it on a weekly basis thanks to my busy schedule, so instead I thought it would be a good idea to just give you an overall view of the series by giving you my top 7 moments of the show. Like anything else in this channel, these top 7 moments are just my opinion, so don't get butthurt. Also, this video contains spoilers for the show, so if you haven't seen it, I would highly suggest that you go and do that before you watch this video. It's 12 episodes, so you could do that, you know, during the weekend if you don't have a lot of homework. Also, I've only seen the anime, I don't read the manga, so yeah, that's where I'm coming from. Because I've heard a lot of complaints, but they're usually from manga readers, so I don't have the manga reading perspective. At least not yet for this show. Moment number 7, Toka versus Tsukiyama. You know, aside from the censorship, the action for this show is actually pretty boss. The thing that got me from this fight is not necessarily the fight itself, but what was at stake, which was Kimi's life, who happened to be one of the very first examples of a human not only accepting a ghoul for who he was, but needing a ghoul to fight this sense of loneliness because she had lost her family. So much so, in fact, that she's willing to lay down her life and be devoured by her significant other if that means that she can somehow be able to help him, which is, you know, her sense of compassion really stood out, especially when she actually tells Toka that she's beautiful. So it kind of pushes the cliche message that love transcends all and that it's able to create connections with people regardless of who and what they are, but it does it in a very unique way. Moment number 6, Mr. Mato and Amon's relationship. This isn't really a moment, but I liked it, so fuck it. It's the standard teacher-student relationship with the teacher leaning more towards being a mad scientist, because let's face it, Mr. Mato is fucking crazy as fuck. He's obsessed with killing, or disposing of ghouls. But, you know, there's also a sense of camaraderie and admiration. The thing that makes this partnership so unique, at least for me, is that in addition to having Mr. Mato be a fucking genius, so even if you don't like his character, you pay attention to what he says, because you know that's going to be important later on in the story. But what really makes it unique is that these two are the antagonistic force for a significant part of the show. It's kind of like the show's attempt at letting the viewer know that the show isn't as black and white as one would want it to be. Yes, Mr. Mato's crazy, but the truth is there are bonds forged on both sides of the equation. Moment number 5, Hinami loses both of her parents. This is one of the most important plot points of the entire show. It's kind of like the midway climax of it all. It's kind of impossible to not feel bad about this little girl. I mean, she was already kind of mourning the loss of her dad, even though he was technically still alive at the time, but he wasn't there with the mom and with her, so it's kind of like, okay, this is kind of like a broken family. And then the dad gets murdered and shit, so it's like, fuck, this sucks. And so the mother, you know, becomes her only parent, and this mother-daughter relationship begins to grow and develop, and just when you think they might be okay, because the little girl still has her mom, she loses her mom as well. It's pretty disturbing and tragic, but it's the show's way of saying, hey, we're not fucking around. There's a pretty bright silver lining to this, though. 2, actually. The first one is the fact that she actually inherits both her mom and her dad's powers, and she uses them to help, well, basically Toka, who's like one of her last remaining friends. Most intelligently so is the fact that she doesn't adopt the urge for vengeance that one would normally get in these situations. Toka asks her straight up, like, why don't you kill him? He killed your parents. Don't you want revenge? And she says, no, I don't care about any of that. I'm just sad. She says she misses her mom and dad, but that's not a motive for her to go and kill people. So even though the killer, the murderer of her parents, deserves to die, and according to my personal logic, this little girl is demonstrating more emotional maturity in this situation than a lot of us would in that same context. Moment number 4, the attack against Aogiri Tree. Bad thing about this is that a lot of the fights and matchups are left inconclusive. However, the rising action and the hype for this moment was great. Like, it reminded me of The Dark Knight, that final scene where they're getting in the SWAT team to go in because you know shit's about to go down. They put on this music track that just builds up the tension, and this one kid, you know, the kid with the white hair with the stitches, I think his name is Juzo or something, he goes on a motorcycle, takes out the front line like it's nothing, you know, just... He drives the motorcycle to the building and jumps off it, and before the bike can crash with the building, he's already taken care of shit. Simultaneously, we also have the Kaneki rescue operation, so these two forces just come together to build this massive hype train Unfortunately, it doesn't really deliver. Moment number 3, Kaneki becomes part ghoul. I don't think this moment needs a lot of explaining. It happens in the first episode. It's what got you and me hooked into the show, as well as a lot of people into it. It was just an incredibly thrilling experience, as well as a psychological experience, to learn that he can no longer eat and enjoy food. And not only that, but he's developed a complex of it being disgusting to him. It just forces you to go through the experience along with him. And then you have that extra layer of complexity that comes with ghouls not being able to survive on anything but human flesh. So it's kind of like, oh, like, what do I do? It's like, I need to eat. If I don't eat, I'm going to starve. I'm going to die. So it creates this morally complicated scenario in which you don't want to be a murderer, but you also want to live. And another question would be, well, if you eat somebody to survive, how is that different from a lion that eats a zebra? Eating is a basic human function. Yet again, everybody has the right to not be devoured too. Moment number 2, white-haired Kaneki. It goes along with my number 3 pick in that we experience Kaneki suffering along with him. Not necessarily, I mean, we don't get tortured through the fucking monitor, but it's like, you are watching this and you're like, oh my God, holy shit. And this shit was censored. He's getting his limbs constantly chopped off, and fucking the asshole that's doing this to him has him counting down to make sure that he's conscious through the entire process. He gets a centipede put in his ear. I just wanted him to go batshit insane and beat the shit out of this asshole. At least all that pain served a purpose in making him stronger, you know, and regenerate faster, which was showcased in the final fights. But I still think Jason deserved way more pain and suffering than what he ended up getting. Obviously, the most important part of this, at least for me, is Kaneki finally accepting and unleashing his ghoulness, if you will. Because it comes to the realization that these 2 women who had enormous impact in his life, one when he was really young, you know, his mom, she taught him the ways of life, in the sense that it's better for you to hurt than to hurt others, which is a fundamentally flawed way of thinking, because pain is just it's a fact of life, you know, you can't really avoid it. Plus, sometimes if you hurt yourself, or if you're hurting, you consequently hurt others in the process. And I like that Rice is there to challenge Kaneki out of this way of thinking. Okay, and whether you agree, you know, that your abilities form your environment or your context, that's not what's important to me. What's important to me is just like, look, your mom was wrong. You have to think for yourself, because look at what your mom did. Your mom actually, in not trying to hurt her sister, she ended up hurting you because she died. So he overpowers both his mom's mentality, and he also overpowers Rice and becomes his own person by the end of the show. And so by the end, we have this person that is not conflicted anymore. Finally, my number 1 moment is Kaneki warning Amon to stay away from him because he's about to kill him. This may seem like a very weird pick for number 1, but it goes along with number 2 very well, because what's the conclusion that Kaneki reaches at the end of episode 12? That he's not the one who's wrong. He's been a good guy, nice guy, all right? He's been trying to do what he thinks is right throughout the entire show. So it's not really him that's wrong, it's the fucking world that's fucked up. Even though he doesn't realize this up until episode 12, in episode 8, we see him kind of like heading towards that direction. Amon, whatever, he has no faith, no trust in ghouls whatsoever. He thinks they should be annihilated. All of them are despicable. And he's actually asking Kaneki for a reason to believe otherwise. And so Kaneki's like, what do I do? He starts to think about both sides, okay? And the fact that there is suffering and loss in the human side and in the ghoul side. And the fact that he's actually an embodiment of both, okay? The ghoul and the human side makes him like live in this limbo sort of state, in that he doesn't fit in anywhere, but at the same time he realizes that he can be the bridge between these 2 worlds, which is why he decides to showcase some sense of mercy to Amon, because even though he could fucking kill his ass right there and then, he says, like, stay away from me, just run, get the hell out of here. So that's my hopeful moment of the show, because, you know, in shonen sometimes, and especially with the generic TV programming bullshit that we get, it's very easy to start thinking in black and white. You know, these guys are the good guys and these guys are the bad guys. When the fact of the matter is that sometimes these divisions, or this polarization of the good versus the bad, just come up because of a lack of empathy from one side to the other, or a misunderstanding, or an experience of pain. The censorship sucked ass, but aside from that, I thought it was a very enjoyable anime, and I haven't read the manga, so yeah, that's where I'm coming from. Leave me a comment down below, subscribe to my channel to get more content that is sometimes anime related, and leave me a like. I really appreciate those a lot, and it's just good encouragement for me, so thank you. Bye.